आ रही है क्या मेरी वीडियो?
चलो
तुम्हारा एको सुनाई दे रहा है शायद।
एक है ना मेरे को।
अब सही है।
हाँ ठीक है।
चलो
कूल है।
30 या 32 या 33 पे स्टार्ट करेंगे।
कूल है।
ओके कितने लोग एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे हैं?
एक्सपेक्ट तो बहुत करते हैं लेकिन आते नहीं है।
कितने साइन अप हुए थे?
साइन अप से 20, देखते हैं 10 आ जाए तो बहुत है। बाकी इट इज गोइंग टू बी स्ट्रीम्ड ऑन यूट्यूब एज वेल, सो
ओके ओके। तो इज इट गोइंग टू बी लाइक लाइव स्ट्रीम्ड?
लाइव स्ट्रीम।
ठीक है।
Okay, let me know if you guys can see my screen.
या
यप।
Good. So we'll get started in a few minutes, guys. So we're just waiting on a few more people to join. Stop sharing my screen so I can see people here.
Okay, let's start.
Okay. Share my screen. Okay, let me know if you guys can see my
Yeah.
screen.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in today. So we're a data tree production. So me and Rashid, we've been running this thing since a while now. So we're on episode 12. And today's talk is a special one because it's about entrepreneurship. So you know, how can you become an entrepreneur in data science, right? So we'll talk about that. So today's speaker, so right, we have Piyush Raj. So we'll give you a brief description about who he is. So let me, tell you guys about us a little bit, and then about him, and then we'll get on to a discussion. So this is an open-ended podcast, so you guys can stop us anytime, ask questions, interact with us. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be about entrepreneurship. It can be about data science, machine learning, data engineering, whatsoever. So yeah, feel free to stop and ask questions or send in the chat box. Okay, so let me just briefly introduce ourselves. So Ashit, go ahead.
Hi everyone. My name is Ashit. My background is civil engineering. I graduated in 2021, and since then I've been a data scientist. I have about 2 years of experience now, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Thanks.
Thank you. About me, get this going. Mithul, I come from a theoretical physics background, then ventured into data science. So I've been a data scientist since about 3 years now. Current, I work for the Decathlon Canada, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn as well. I have a link there. Piyush, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I graduated in chemical engineering in 2019, then worked as a data scientist, like data science associate at ZS, which is a consulting firm, for a year. And then in 2020, I left that job to pursue entrepreneurship full time. So I currently run a data science blog called datascienceparicha.com and an AI tool called Code Convert AI. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and you can connect with him as well on LinkedIn. So Shinsi mentioned about blogs. So let's start from there, right? So yeah, I think a good discussion to start from. So he's been a founder of Data Science Paricha since 2020, and he's been writing blogs since then. So this is his website. You guys can go check it out. We'll put a link in the chat. And yeah, you can find all sorts of things here related to Python or so you can go explore it. And then there's this website here that he's been working on, which is a code converter. So how does it work? You go there, you basically select whatever programming language you'd like to convert your code from, and language that you want to convert your code to, and that's it. That's all it does, and you can play around with it. Go check it out. So let's start with your journey, right? From chemical engineering to data science associate. So how was that journey? When did you figure you wanted to, you wanted to move away from chemical engineering and go into data science?
Right. So like chemical engineering was the branch that I was getting in an old IIT. So I didn't have any specific inclination for doing chemical engineering. But since I was getting a good enough old IIT, so I decided to why not give this a shot. And for the first 2 years, I was pretty much, pretty adamant that no, I just want to be a chemical engineer only. This is that, this, that. I tried research and different things. But then I somehow didn't find that interesting or exciting, at least for me. So then I started exploring other things like programming, web development, data science. Fortunately for me, there was this group in our college called the Data Science Group. It was just set up a year before I got in, a year before my third year. So the seniors or the students there were very helpful in terms of guiding and providing and understanding what data science actually is. Back then, it was actually very hyped up then as well, like in 2018, 2019. And so therein started like my journey of at least exploring what data science is. And then I looked on for resources online. I did a couple of online courses. But the thing that helped me truly get what data science was actually about was this book called Python Machine Learning by Sebastian Rushka. So in that book, he basically not only explains what the algorithms are, but also goes into the linear algebra or the math behind the algorithm. So that helped me very much in understanding what data science is, and I felt intrigued in doing data science. Then I did an internship after my third year which was in data science itself, in the NLP domain. I was working for a company in Mumbai, and I was working primarily on named entity recognition there. So that also helped me, like, gave me more about what the industry was working on during those days. And named entity recognition is quite worked upon now as well. So after that, like, I started like getting interested in taking part in hackathons. And it is like a very, random, weird reason. Like, for some reason, like, we wanted, like, me and my very close friend of mine, we wanted to have this DSLR camera. And of course, we were broke college students. So uh, one of the ways to get it was like, some of the competitions had these cash prizes, or even one competition then by American Express had its second prize as the DSLR camera. So we didn't
So
even
was this
want the
on
prize.
was
Yeah.
this on Kaggle? Was
No, no,
this
no.
was this hackathon on
It
Kaggle?
was not Kaggle. They hosted this hackathon. I'm not sure which platform did they host it on, but it was not Kaggle. And it was basically like a 7-day hackathon. And primarily for it, like, I think only yeah,
Analytics with their
I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether it was Analytics Vidya or any other platform. So yeah, so I took part in that. I took part in other hackathons as well, like EX. So like during my time, the calendar was like EXL used to do one big hackathon, then American Express would do one, then ZS would do one, and then Goldman Sachs did the GS Quantify. So we were like, sort of, these were the four main tournaments that we had to take part in. So like through these hackathons, I gained a lot of knowledge, especially like practical knowledge. And since you are under the gun in these hackathons, you have a time limit, and the feedback is instant. You know what your score is on the public leaderboard at least. So you keep working on, you keep working on. So interestingly, through one of these hackathons in ZS, I got my job. So I performed well in that hackathon, and they offered me a job there. So that is how my journey started in data science. And then I worked as a data science associate in ZS for a year. So after working there for a year, so I had a great time there. Like, I was working on challenging projects, really like proper production projects where you get to build machine learning models, build interesting features, work with large volumes of data, and and follow all the best practices that are there in the industry. So that got me very, like, it got me a very good experience of how the real world works, how, what should be the best practices, what are the gold standards of working with on a proper data science problem. So, but the thing is that I was always interested in, like, I was always throwing my hands around at different things. So I wanted to pursue entrepreneurship for a while, but I wanted to have that industry experience as well. So after a year of working there, I decided, let's
Actually, before you
yeah.
talk about entrepreneurship, right? Before you get onto that topic, so I just want to spend a little bit of time about talking about hackathon, right? Because I don't see a lot of like beginners spending time on hackathon. All that they spend time on is boot camps, right? So
Mm.
once they've taken one course, they move on, go they take another course, and so on and so forth, right? So I just want to talk a little bit about why hackathons are so important and why people should participate in hackathons, and
Right.
how you know in terms of jobs, right? You got a job because you participated in hackathons, right?
Right.
So right now people are struggling, to land their jobs, and it's competitive, right? There's so many people trying to get into data science,
Mm.
and all that people do is boot camps, and then they expect to get a job, right? So in terms of hackathon, right? So how valuable do you think these are, and how one can get started in hackathons?
Right. So I think courses and boot camps are nice. Like, they'll give you a start. But then again, a lot of learning has to come from the self, right? So like, how hackathons help is that you're thrown at a problem, and you'll have to figure out a particular solution. And so boot camps are nice that they are guided, this project, like, what are the steps to take. It's very, and it is good. Like for a beginner, you need that sort of support starting out. What hackathons do is like you're thrown into water and you have to learn how to swim. And I think a lot of learning, I think a lot of learning is understanding that even if you don't know, you have to like give it a shot, figure out why what you don't know, fill out those gaps, and then try it again. And particularly in data science, for example, in hackathons, I didn't know a lot of ML algorithms during the time I was participating in those hackathons. But then, since it's so gamified in the sense that you're participating in a hackathon, you have made a solution, you make that submission, and you'll see a score, like on a public leaderboard. Ki, this is your score. And then you start thinking, okay, what else can I do? Can I try a new different ML algorithm? Can I try a bunch of new features that could help me with this? And hackathons provide that, that sort of gamified environment. Of course, hackathons take their own toll as well, but they give you this sort of accelerated environment for learning, because the feedback is instant. You just, you build some things, you build features, you take a new ML model, you stack different ML models together, and you see the instant result. So doing that and probably participating in multiple hackathons will, like open up your mind about different sort of things that are there in data science. Of course, hackathons, the products that you build or solutions that you build in hackathons are very, very quick and quickly spun up products that may not be good enough for production. But then the thing is key, they get you started, and a lot of things you might be hesitant about doing when you're just doing a course. You might think ki, okay, I've learned these algorithms and it is sufficient. So hackathons sort of try to challenge that in a way that you just have to somehow get a better score there. So you open up about things, you try to learn things, you see other Kaggle kernels of what people are doing. And I think this sort of accelerated environment sort of helps people in hackathons. I would say hackathons are still very valuable. For example, if you feel that whatever you've been taught is okay, you have got a decent enough basic understanding, but then you want to try a lot of things out. So hackathon will make you, give you that uncomfortable experience, and a lot of growth happens in those uncomfortable experiences. You'll have to face it, and it is not like, oh yo, this is a hackathon, I know I'll do type this and it'll happen, whatever will happen, right? You have to be uncomfortable, and you have to, face that discomfort, go through it, and which is where your learning will happen. And as you'll grow, you'll realize, like even in your job scenarios as well, some projects might be difficult, but then they'll be the one where you'll learn the most. So yeah, hackathons are still very valuable. I'm not saying courses or other things are not valuable, they are, but like they bring you that challenged or accelerated environment where you can at least try and see, like learn a lot of things in a very short amount of time. And then once the hackathon is over, you can just go over and discuss with your friends or whoever else participated in the hackathon, and which is where a lot of gaps. So as a beginner, you know some things, you don't know a lot of things, or you don't know some things as well, but there are a lot of unknown unknowns, which means you don't know what you don't know, right? So when participating in hackathons or doing any activity that sort of challenges you to broaden your horizons. So this is where you discover those unknowns, and then use your curiosity to tackle those unknowns, and a lot of learning happens there as well. So again, hackathons can be like very time and energy consuming, so you have to balance that as well. But I'd still say hackathons can be a very good learning experience. Hopefully try to do it with your friends, because when you discuss ideas with your friends, a lot of your gaps also get cleared up in whatever you're discussing. So yeah, so hackathons, and a lot of companies do offer hackathons, even if your college is not like particularly sponsoring a hackathon or organizing a hackathon, you can still go on Kaggle, Analytics Vidya, or other websites that are there.
Yeah, I mean, talking about entrepreneurship as well, right? Like I've seen so many. So back when I was in my master's, right? So I had friends who used to participate in hackathon, and I've seen people turning that into a business, right? So they would participate in some form of projects, and they would see that this form of projects, there are not a lot of companies out there who are doing it. So what they do is through that hackathon, they actually turn it into a product,
Right.
and there you go. You actually have a startup, right? So yeah, so it's interesting to work on many different problems. There's so many use cases,
Yes.
of AI, so many applications, and that's what people are doing right now, right? So building AI-based applications and products, right? So looks like we have a user who wants to jump onto entrepreneurship. So let's get started on that then, and then we'll come back to this topic after. So moving
One
on to
I'd
your
like to add about hackathons is a lot of folks, even my included, even me included, when I was taking part in those hackathons, at least in the initial days, I would think that hackathons are for people who already know data science and all. Why, why me, a beginner, should take part in this? And that is, you shouldn't be thinking about that at all.
Yeah.
Hackathons are the primary place where a lot of your learning will happen. So give it a shot. The, mostly good will happen out of it. You'll learn a lot of things. And if you're consistent enough, if you see a pattern in how you're performing and you're improving, hackathons can give you a lot of good results as well in terms of whatever prizes or even career opportunities as well.
True, and you get paid, right? And if you win it, I've had friends who won $5,000, $6,000, right? Just participating in hackathons, and if they didn't get first place, but still, even if you come on second or third place, you still get prizes, right? And that's something you can put it on your resume. So you're learning about networking as well. I mean, overall, you're gaining skills in coding and all that sort of things, but you're also learning about networking. You're learning about how to work as part of a team, right? So they're also and learning about new problems, right? How do you tackle new problems, right? Problem solving skill sets, communication skills, because at the end of the day, you have to present the right blogs about it, and so on. So all of those sort of skills, right, you're gaining by participating in hackathons. Good on that. So from ZS Science, data science associate, how do you become a founder of data science per se? So why do you start that?
Right. So I've been very, I used to, I'm very fidgety in terms of trying things out, right? So even when I was as a data science associate, I was also running a cricket blog. So at the time in 2019, particularly in the 2019 World Cup, that cricket blog got, a lot popular during that time. And I was also working on that blog, also had a Facebook page about it. But with my job, I didn't used to get as much time to at least to run that blog or to work on the different ideas that I had. So after completing my 1 year at ZS, I decided ki let's give give entrepreneurship a full-time shot. Let's see what can happen. And immediately after that, after I quit my job, I decided to build this app basically. So my father runs a kirana store in UP. So I wanted to build this mobile app, very simple app, nothing much innovative about it. Because of what he used to do and what a lot of shopkeepers used to do is that whenever a customer comes, they take his order by pen, and then they'll take whatever the quantity he's buying, whatever the unit price of that product is, then multiply it by a calculator or hand, and then sum it all up by a calculator. So I wanted to build a very simple mobile app, because a lot of shopkeepers can't afford, these computers and all.
Fancy.
It also takes a lot of space as well. And smartphone adoption has been quite decent in India as well, that even shopkeepers have that. So I built a very simple app, bought our thermal printer, connected it to it, and started, this sort of product plus service sort of thing. But like after working on it for 2-3 months, a few shopkeepers around like my father's shop were also interested in it, but I didn't find a lot of like support for adoption of that technology. They wanted that to happen, but they didn't have the staff to operate that smartphone there. For my father's shop, I was so adamant, ki this is a good thing, you'll avoid so much calculation errors, that I used to sit for hours on my shop making those bills with my smartphone. So, but then I decided it is taking a lot of time, and like maybe I chose not the a very uh, conducive place to start that, particularly a tier 3 city in UP. Maybe if had it been started in Bangalore or a more developed city, it might have had a better adoption. But then again, these are just assumptions. So I then decided, let's stick to building things on the internet, because building things like building hardware products, or at least building things that require operational stuff, takes a lot of time, particularly if you're a single founder working on these things. So I decided, let's stick to what I know. And I knew data science, I knew how to run a blog. So I built a data science blog. I also started a small community. At the time, I was helping, basically guiding them on what data science is, how they can learn, whatever the resources that are there on Slack. Over time, that blog started getting a lot of visitors, particularly from the US. Then I realized that since people in the US have a lot of purchasing power compared to people in India, I found the advertising rates, the ads that so ad was the basic medium which I had monetized that blog. Everything on the blog is free, and ads is the medium with which that blog generates revenue. So I found that since you people in the US have a higher purchasing power, I'm getting per unit viewership, a lot of values from the US visitors than from the Indian visitors. So then I shifted my focus to building that blog in such that the audience in the US grows. So which is where that journey started. But the thing was, like, after a year into my entrepreneurship journey, like starting with that printer and mobile app thing, and then with this data science blog, after a year, I hadn't really made like decent amount, or I mean any decent amount of money there. And I was I I thought to myself that, okay, this is fine, okay, you had your 1 year of chance, let's go back to a job. So then I decided, okay, I'll keep working on these ideas that I have, but I'll also start applying to jobs. So all this while I was living with my parents, since I wanted to save money. I had savings from my first job, but I still wanted to save money. So I was living with my parents. But then to, go out and get the job back, I moved to Delhi, where my friends were preparing for UPSC, and they were living for very cheap because they are also not earning. So they are preparing full time for UPSC. So I tagged along with them to their library. They used to study for UPSC. I used to continue working on my projects, and plus revise stuff so that I could get back to a job sooner. During that time, fortunately, I got a contract from a US advertising agency, and they agreed that they put ads on my website, and we decided upon a revenue share agreement. From that started my journey of, like a sufficiently decent success, at least in terms of blogging, that I decided not to pursue going back to a job then. And then, so yeah, so this was like a year back. And then I tried my hands at different things with the with chat gpt and everything. With chat gpt, I think it has been a few months since it has been launched. So what has happened is that a lot of people, instead of searching for their queries, particularly whatever like programming or errors related queries on Google, they are simply asking chat gpt, and chat gpt is giving those responses. More often than not, these responses are correct as well. So what happened was that my viewership for the blog started coming down. And this is a trend across the industry. Other similar technical blogs have had their viewership come down. Even Stack Overflow's website traffic is down by 15-20%. So I decided like I cannot fight ChatGPT. So why not use it to build something? So so during my like job in ZS, I had to like convert a big chunk of our data pipeline from Python to PySpark because the data that our pipeline would have to handle was very large. And with pandas, you couldn't do like threaded processes, and PySpark could handle that big data. So at the time, I didn't have a lot of uh, time and bandwidth to learn PySpark from the get go and then translate everything. So I had to painstakingly Google every part, see how to do group by in Panda. So how to do that in PySpark, how to do this particular operation in PySpark. So from that experience, I knew ki if something like a code converter had existed then, it would have been very valuable to me. So with Chat GPT and whatever that has been happening in the AI world, a lot of problems that were earlier not as possible have now become at least seemingly possible. So which is where I got the idea. Like I knew I had faced this problem. So other people might also face this problem. And it's not just Python to PySpark, Pandas to PySpark. There are code migrations happening across different programming languages. So then so this was the genesis of the idea. I started building this tool, and a couple of months back, I launched this tool. Uh, Fortunately, an Instagram influencer reached out to me. So he basically makes these reels on AI tools. So I collaborated with him. We got the reel made, and the reel went viral on Instagram. So it got like 3 million views, and that like shot up the viewership of that AI tool. And of course, since that viral hit, the viewership has come down. But then it gave me that initial set of users to test what the product is doing, to get that valuable feedback from them and make improvements to the product. Now, now have like after 2 months of launching it, I have like over 50,000 users on the product, and it's working well for them. And so so this was basically how I started off, like from as a chemical engineering undergrad to getting into data science and then trying different things out. And now currently I'm running the data science blog and also this AI tool.
So, do you have any paid users on your this code convert?
Yeah, I have over 40 paid users. So again, the I am still yet to zero in on the business model for this. Since it is still early stages, I want this tool, to be used by as many people as it can, which is why I have kept a very generous free tier that people even without logging in can use this tool. So that is there. I'm constantly in talks with people, fixing whatever their customer support queries are and listening to their feedback. So yeah.
And
I'll put
you
the link. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say I'll put the link to the code converter tool that Piyush is talking about in the chat. You guys can go check it out. Yeah, go ahead, Ashit.
So you got these paid users organically, or did you use any like marketing on this?
No. So all these paid users have come organically. So the thing is, key now, since I've worked on the SEO of uh, this tool is ranking well in Google for a number of queries, which is where a lot of people are discovering this tool, right? So they come to the website if they have a large enough use case, for example, that doesn't fit within the free tier. They go ahead and buy this pro subscription.
Yeah,
So
I think SEO is the like the most important thing for businesses these days. If
Yeah.
if users can't even find your product, then there's no way they're going to use it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can build the best product that can be there, but if users don't use it, it doesn't really matter, right? So,
Right.
so from that first spike of users from that viral Instagram reel, you'll only get a spike from a particular viral hit. To get that steady stream of users, SEO can be a very good option for you if you don't want to spend on marketing. And particularly since I'm a solo founder, I work alone. I don't want to spend a lot of money on marketing. So SEO is something that I very, uh, was a very important focus for me. And since, that decrease in viewership after that viral hit, the viewership of that blog has been of this tool has been consistently growing, thanks to SEO itself. So yeah, SEO is very important, because Google is ranking your tool or whatever your services or product that you're offering, right? And some other competitor who may not have worked as much on SEO, they'll have to like buy Google AdWords and so on. So you doing that initial amount of work will give you a lot of value in the long run. SEO, like it takes time for SEO to, start kicking in, and you have to do a number of things. For example, you have to create relevant content such that Google finds your content relevant enough to the user's query so that it will rank it. Then you'll have to make sure that your website is fast, has a very good user experience, and so that these are these small nudges, or these are the small criterias with which it decides, okay, these two websites offer similar sort of thing, so this website has a better user experience, so I'll rank it better. So yeah, so these are the few things that you keep in mind when working with SEO. But yes, SEO can be like very helpful to get those steady stream of users for your website.
So I think SEO is
So
like
for
free marketing given to you by Google, right?
Yes, it is sort of a free marketing. You have to plan about it, and yes, once it starts kicking in, it'll get users. It'll get you users.
So question on, so how did you go from, because it's one of the biggest questions that people often ask, right? So having an idea to go into the execution, right? It's a massive step, right? So how did you go from, oh, I had this idea, now I want to actually execute it, right? I'm not sure what's going to be my end product or how I'm going to do this, but so how did you start executing this project, and how long it took you to build this entire tool?
Right. So it is it's different in terms of what what you want to build. For example, like there is this quote from Steve Jobs, right? When he says that the dots connect backwards. So like whatever things that you have done in the future will somehow come in the present and help you out. For example, like with data science parichay, with my data science blog, right? So since I've had that experience of running a cricket blog, I knew how to build a website or a blog. Uh, so that is something that helped me. I know this. So when I was like building my cricket blog, I didn't know in the future I might also build a data science blog, right? But then it happened, right? Because I knew something, because I was curious enough to act upon it. Similarly, like while like during before Code Convert, I knew I wanted to get into the SaaS space, software as a service space. So I knew data science, I knew how to build a blog, but the platform with which my blog is built is like a low code platform. So of course you can also build a SaaS with low code tools as well. But I knew that since I already know Python and data science, I think it wouldn't be as hard for me to learn proper web development or proper, building these SaaS products. So I used to, while working on data science parichay, I used to, do these courses and try to build small projects on web development itself. So I learned like React, front end development, basic API management, and serverless functions and all. Next.js. So because I knew in the future I'll most definitely want to build like a SaaS tool or a SaaS product. So this was something I very actively learned. And then even then I was not very confident about my skills of building a software tool or a website. But then with ChatGPT releasing its API and all, I think the API had been out earlier itself the API had been out very earlier as against the ChatGPT UI. So a lot of people were building tools on top of that ChatGPT API. So then I started like, let's build. So I just figured out what would be the simple components of the website. Like there would be one window where you could have input code, one window where you have the output code. So first I built a very basic, very single page application, which didn't have login, user management, payments, anything at all. Just take whatever input code is there. You decide whatever programming, like these are simple things like drop down and so on, and see if I can perform the meat of what my product would do. So I did that. And then since this was my first like SaaS product, I like learned everything on the go, like how to do user management, like what happens when a user logs in. So it's all his all entire information will be there with me during the session. So the behavior of the SaaS product will be different to a logged in user as against to a free user. How to restrict these free users so that they can only use the tool for a certain amount of time, because I also have to pay for my servers, right? So for free users, how to perform those API limiting, API rate limiting. So it took a lot of time for me to build. I think it took like 3 months for me to build at least a usable product where people can log in, make payments, use this product, give feedback, and so on and so forth. So the answer is it depends. It depends on how comfortable you are with what you're building. For example, when I was building my data science blog, since I was already comfortable with the platform with which you build a blog, for example, a WordPress website, it didn't take a lot of time for me to at least get started with this. Since this was the first time I was building a SaaS product, it took me a while because I was not very confident in a lot of things. For example, in terms of security, I didn't know ki this particular thing that I'm doing, whether it exposes a lot of things from like whether it exposes my database or not, which over time I learned. So again, this is also an example where even if you don't know a lot of things, you just dive headfirst into it and you'll figure it out, right? So which is where I'd say it took me 3 months, but also working on data science paricha as well. Someone who knows programming or like who knows proper web development might have done it in a lot less amount of time. But yeah, it is up to you how you see it, then like the amount of time that will take.
So
Yeah, the skills. Yeah, go ahead, Ashit.
hosting a website and so even the ChatGPT API is not free now, right? Or it was never free, I think. So how are you funding this? Did you take funding from somewhere, or are you putting your savings into it?
Right. So yeah, ChatGPT API is not free. When you get started, you get an $18 credit. For most of simple hobby usages, that $18 is, I think, sufficient enough. But then if you're using like a consumer product on top of it, you'll have to, put your credit card in there or debit card and whatever make those payments for those charges. Right now, so I also generate revenue from my blog, data science blog. So that itself, at least in the initial days of Code Convert, was sponsoring or what covering up for those charges. Now Code Convert has become profitable in itself. So I don't need to rely on my blog earnings for that. So yeah. Also, like at least this has been my style. Like I don't take funding because at least for the first few products that I build, I just want to take them to a bigger success just by myself to see, like, because I want to have that freedom. I don't want to have, and there's nothing wrong in going with the funding route. It's just me that I want to operate in the, I don't want to operate in under those constraints. I just want to have the freedom to build the things that I want to build and see where I can take them. So yeah.
Also, do you also feel like you have built all the websites by yourself?
Yeah.
So even the Code Convert website, you have learned and built it.
Yeah.
So did you feel Did you think about taking help from an agency or something to build the website,
Uh,
or do you actually enjoy making websites?
yeah, I actually, I absolutely love it. So it just never crossed. I just didn't even think about it for once to get help from another agency or anything. Yes, building like coding or building things, I like it very much. But then there are times you feel like you want to pull your hair off because you're stuck. So because I enjoy this process so much, so I didn't think about that. Also, like at least when you're working alone, you may have these moments of doubts where you don't know how to proceed further. Maybe it's a bug or maybe it's a business sort of thing, right? uh, for bugs, I can say that chat gpt can be very helpful. You don't know like how to proceed to the next level. Even google searches are not giving you good results. So I think chat gpt can be your senior developer, or that senior that you go to when you are generally stuck. So that is something that has helped me. Um, other than that, I think like since I like this style of work, it's okay for me. It's again, it depends upon person to person. So since I like this style of work, it's okay for me. Again, from a business standpoint, your customers do not really care like whether the company, the person behind is a single person or it's a multi-million-dollar company. They just want to get their needs served. They just want to have that value that they want to get, right? So they don't know what is happening under the hood, which is sort of a good thing for you. Like, and the thing is that since I'm building things on the internet, I can take use of a lot of things that are very leveraged. For example, since code convert, right? So code convert is an AI tool. So if 100 people use it or 100,000 people use it, I only have to change my like give more price to my server or hosting company, right? I don't have to change a lot of logic for there. Of course, with 100,000 users, I'll have to handle a lot of different customer support requests. That is a different thing. But especially in terms or like if I zero in on the product offering itself, since this is so much leveraged, like like something that is hosted on the internet itself, it can be used by one person, 100% or 100,000 person, and a lot of it will not change. And particularly with the technology nowadays, uh, you can build tools or websites that can handle a good amount of load for very cheap. So yeah.
So let's take a question by Naveen, since we have that question since a while. So he's a bit nerd and he's asking, what is data science? What is AI?
Right. So like data science is a very, very big umbrella term, right? So data science basically you use data to make important business decisions, right? Uh, a lot of data science, like a lot of data science, when it comes to companies doing data science, is sort of predictive. Like you take a certain amount of data, you predict what can happen in the future that can be helpful to for our companies. I'll give you an example. Like when I was working for ZS, so our client was a very big tech company in the US. So what they used to do is that they used to run these marketing campaigns on their prospective customers. For example, let's say you might have also received these emails from companies like we offer this particular product or software. It will be helpful to you in these particular ways, right? So they used to run these marketing campaigns, and these campaigns could be an email campaign or they could offer a webinar or whatever, right? So what our job as a team was to take all that data, feed it to a machine learning model, and then for each of their prospective customer, give a score that whether this person is likely to purchase this product or not. And I'll give you the reason why we were doing this, because uh, once we gave that score for each customer, how much is that particular customer likely to purchase that product, we used to give them a ranked list of customers with the customer with the highest probability of being converted to the lowest, right? So this list would go to their salesperson. And since their sales team has a limited capacity, so they wanted to act on the people that are very much likely to convert. So this is where machine learning or data science helps. It takes data from whatever sources that we have, like whatever marketing campaigns that we are doing, some user related data as well. And then that model decides based upon historical data that we already have. We have seen in the data that with these particular data points and with these particular interactions, this sort of customer is more likely to purchase a product. So an ML model basically identifies those, those patterns in the data, and whenever new data comes in, that ML model tells, okay, so this is the probability of the particular customer converting. And so in our use case, how is the business getting, utilizing data science? They are utilizing it so that their sales team does not work on those leads that are not likely to convert. So they are optimizing their spend of their salesperson. Also, this is also an efficient way in terms of they'll get more customers that are more likely to convert. So why waste that effort and so much there? So data science in a very broad nutshell, you can say, take data, identify patterns in those data. Usually, people use machine learning algorithms to identify those patterns depending on what sort of problem you're solving, and then use the results from that model, inferences from that model in a way that can help drive success for your business. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice overview. And yeah, I mean, a lot of people get confused, right? Like AI, this is terms, right? AI, data science, machine learning, deep learning, and so on and so forth, right? So I always tell people, like, think of pick any engineering degree, think of that as a field. AI would be that field, and then inside that you have the subfields, right? You have data science, you have deep learning, and so on and so forth, right? So based on that, we have another question. So differentiate between a data scientist and an ML engineer.
Right. So data scientist, I would say, is more concerned about like training the model in terms of what the features would go into the model, like how, and maybe depending on the company or the team that you're working with, they may also be involved in the data pre-processing or the data pipeline part of it. But more often than not, they are interested in like what sort of features or what sort of new technique they could use so that they could extract more juice out of that data. So it could be using a different ML algorithm. It could be using a different set of features from the data that they already have. And then, training that algorithm, understanding the outputs of that algorithm. An ML engineer, again, depending on the company, can also do the similar thing, but they are mostly concerned about, I think, whatever happens once the model has been trained, or like with the model in production, how does it get deployed, how to monitor that model, or even in the training and the inference part as well. How are you training? Are you using early stopping or whatever, right? So ML engineer is more sort of a software engineer who is like someone who puts like the data science models into production. Data scientist is someone who takes that data and spins up a model out of it, doing their own research in terms of what methods they could use, what algorithms they could use, or what set of features they could use. Again, this is very like hand wavy definition, but yeah, this is.
So I want to give an example, right? So, we have three people here. So let's take that as an example, right? So we have Ashit, me, and Piyush, right? So let's say Ashit is a data engineer. I'm a data scientist, and let's say Piyush is a ML engineer, right? So the whole story starts from Ashit, right? So he's a data engineer. So if we take an example of, let's say, a retail company, so Ashit would be the one who would be in charge of collecting data of, let's say, customers, transactions that's been made in the store, inventory, and so on and so forth, right? And he would be the one would be creating an infrastructure where all of these data would be stored, right? And then he would be doing some ETL processes on that data, right, to get it into a nice format that a data scientist can then use, right? So all of that sort of things is done by Ashid. Then me, right? So my role as a data scientist, let's say a client reaches out to me from, let's say, a marketing team who would like to have some sort of analysis done, right? So then they would come to me, I would have a big business problem statement. Then I would go grab the data that Ashid has stored somewhere, aggregated it, right? I'll extract the necessary columns from the table and so on and so forth, right? I would do the analysis and everything, right? And let's say if there's a machine learning part, then I would build some models and so on. And then those models, I would pass it on to the Piyush, right? Now, Piyush is in charge of deploying those models, right? Putting them into production, monitoring them in production, maintenance, and so on and so forth, right? So this is how this entire sort of pipeline works, if that makes sense. Okay. We have another question: how to choose a career between computer vision and NLP?
Right. I mean, a lot of it could also depend on what are you more interested in. Like, do you want to work on, computer vision related tasks, or are you more interested in the usual works of NLP? And I would say, like, the NLP space, I think with LLMs now, both the space is very hot right now. You'd find a lot of very a lot of quick uh, very quick usage of NLP tools. A lot of companies are not as are not using computer vision as much as they are using NLP, because it's just the use case itself. Like, there's a lot of textual data out there. It could also be structured data as well. Even you give LLMs, for example, you give Chat GPT structured data, a CSV file. You can simply ask questions to it and it'll give you answers. So I'd say both the fields are like very much hot right now. I don't think you'll be wrong in choosing either. If you don't like, then if you don't really have a choice to make there, I'd say go with NLP, because NLP is used a lot more, which is what I think. So
Yeah, it depends on your interest, right? So I would say, like, go with your interest. Like me, for instance, I've been into computer vision for a long time, and I've tried really, really hard to learn NLP, but it's not that it's hard, but it's just that I don't find it interesting. Like me myself, I don't find it interesting doing NLP myself. So there's been times where I've started like learning about NLP, and then at some point I've cut off because I just couldn't. I was finding it boring, right? So it depends on your interest, like what interests you.
yeah.
I think Ashit works on a lot of NLP stuff as well.
So I've done an internship where I worked on NLP. But yeah, so computer vision is a lot like, so you can actually see stuff. So it can get you excited. In NLP, you can't really see stuff. So it just words, right? So words convert. But yeah, so I worked in an internship where so the problem statement was that, so a lot of companies have a lot of data lying around, and so but so let's say there are two tables in different databases, and these tables might have uh, some rows which correspond to the same entity, let's say. So let's say both the rows are about the same person, but we don't know that they're about the same person, but the data inside that is about the same person. So you have to, so this problem is called entity resolution, where you kind of try to match different rows together and classify whether they correspond to the same entity or not. Similarly, it can be a schema matching problem where you try to match different columns. So different columns can be named differently, can have different data, but they correspond to the same variable. Let's say the variable is age. Both the columns are of age of someone, but they have different data. So and the column can be of address as well, where NLP comes in. So this problem included NLP as well as numbers.
Yeah, so I'd say, see what is it that you're interested in, because the field, both the fields are pretty huge, right? And if you're gonna become an expert in one of them, it's about, if it really interests you, if it excites you, right? Like Tesla, for example, right? It's all computer vision, but also there is a speech part, right? Which is where the NLP part comes in. So there's a combination of both. So there are companies out there like here, for instance, I've seen a lot of companies here. They are solely based on computer vision, right? All that they have to do is images. That's it. So yeah, it depends on your interest. Let's say figure out your interest and then venture into any of those fields. Okay, we have a question from. So I think as of this point, I think it would be a good idea to just take on questions. So for 10 minutes, and then we can wrap it up. So we have a question from Sri Prasad. Can you compare the data science roles at your companies? Do you want to start a shit? Like Piyush is like, I'm the only person.
So at my previous company, so we had a separate role for data engineer, separate role for data scientist, and a separate role for data visualization as well. Yeah, so the deployment part was up to the data scientist only. So there was no ML engineer, there was no ML ops role separate, but data engineering was different and data scientist is different.
Yeah, my company, because we have a data science team, like in different countries, there's different data science team. But here in Canada specific, there's only data science team. All the data engineers, they're based in France. So they are the ones who do all the data engineering stuff. But here we are the ones who do data science, data analysts, basically building dashboards and stuff, as well as the deployment part also. So a bit of DevOps and MLOps. Yeah, so these are the different roles. And this is sort of good because you get to get your hands on many different things and upskill yourself. Because I see a demand in the organizations, right, to have additional skill sets, not just data analysis, but also how can you do automation, how can you do CI/CD and all that stuff. Yeah. Any thoughts on Piyush on this one?
Right. Like I have more or less like explained the process that I did at my previous company. So we also had like data engineers in the team that used to handle the data preparation and the data pipeline part. As data scientists, our work was mostly related to handling the model, the training, building features for the model, and then also monitoring in terms of like checking the model drift in terms of the performance of the model. The the deployment was handled by a client itself. So yeah, we were mostly focused on the model itself, training, building features, and all.
Since we have touched on this topic, so I just want to ask and see what are people's view on this, right? So as compared to a few years ago, there weren't many skills that was required by a data scientist, let's say. But now I see companies are looking for so many different skill sets, like diverse skill sets, before they can get hired, right? So what's your thought on that? Like, how should people, even if it's beginners, right? When people who are already experienced, they are already, are capable of getting jobs because they already have experience, right? But let's say beginners who are coming out fresh, what do you want to share with them? How can they upskill themselves, or what are some of the things that they should focus on? Because time is money. So what are some of the things that they should focus on?
Right. So like starting off, I'd say that like if you're starting off, just focus on having good fundamentals of understanding what data science is, what data engineering is, or whatever, right? Like for example, you are interested in data science. So understand like first of that we're doing, there has to be, a good business reason for what we're doing. Also understanding whatever the different, parts of the data science process is. For example, starting from the data preparation, model training, model evaluation, maybe some sort of model deployment as well. Basic understanding of what happens and why this happens, and then your meat of the data science part, where where you build features and use ML models. So have a good solid basic understanding of what ML is, good understanding of the basic ML algorithms, like the 6 7 very common ML algorithms that are there. And then, depending upon your interest, I'd say pick one sort of stream where you sort of have decent level of expertise in. For example, you could pick NLP, right? Or maybe with NLP, computer vision, or even you could pick a specialty in terms of an industry. For example, you know how to work around fintech data, or how to work around data in, for example, insurance industry. Because this having a good solid foundation will at least ensure you that even if you're placed in a different scenario or a situation where you may not be as expert in, since you have those fundamentals, you'll be quickly learn new things. The second thing is like having that single, sort of expertise on top of a good foundation will help you. For example, it'll obviously, if you want to stick to that particular field, it'll help you compound there as well. For example, if you know that you want to stick to fintech, so your expertise will be very much valuable when you're going for your next company, or maybe inside your own company in a bigger role, right? So yeah, so have a good grounding of the basics, and then maybe pick one or two, or maybe just one, where you have a good understanding and a good ground there.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I would say like people should always, think long term. Think about, what's going to happen in the next 5 years. Like past 5 years, data science was a hype. And now it's like data engineers get paid more and there are more jobs on that end. Think about in the next 5 years where the trend's going to go, right? Just the new roles now opening up, MLOps, DevOps, right? So wherever you are or whatever company you are at, try to see if you can get your hands on those sort of things. Learn it as well as apply. Don't just learn it for the sake of learning, but actually apply it. That's how you will get experience. Okay, I think that's a wrap for today. We'll wait 2 more minutes if you guys have any questions. Otherwise, we'll call it a day.
Also, feel free to write any suggestions for the next podcast or the next masterclass.
And yeah, thank you, Piyush, for taking time out and joining us today. Yeah, it was a lovely discussion, and good to hear, about your achievements so far and things that you're going to be doing going forward.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I had a wonderful time as well.
Also, good luck with Code Convert. We hope to
keep us updated. Yeah.
Sure.
We hope
Thanks.
to see it on the top soon.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And I'm going to try and use it every now and then.
Right. All right then. Bye.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Have a nice evening and good night. Okay. See ya.